Then a-bounding up the slope came a great American jackalope. This sage of the sage, this rare hair of hope, caused to pause and check out the lamb. Hey kid, why the mope?
Hi there, and welcome to Baseball by Design. I am SportsLogos.net minor league baseball correspondent Paul Caputo, broadcasting live, as always, from the Helmet Sunday Hall of Fame in my basement in Fort Collins, Colorado. I have to start this episode by saying, normally you'll hear me say, I record these episodes way in advance, and then you'll hear me say, like, oh, at the time of this recording, we're all getting ready to celebrate the 4th of July, and then it drops in November, right? And so on this episode, I am recording on Monday, November 7, and this episode drops Tuesday, November 8. I'm talking about a brand new team this week. Later on, I'll be bringing back our wildlife consultant, Ranger Amy Burnett. But right now, I am speaking with Nathan Martinez, who is the graphic design manager for the Future Legends Complex. And that is notable because this is the organization that just brought into the world the Grand Junction Jackalopes. Nathan, thank you so much. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, man. Thanks for having me, Paul.
Oh man, I'm so excited to this is a rare occasion for me to have like breaking news. To actually have this like breaking news here is fun. You're the graphic designer who created the brand for this brand new team at long last, 2 years after they lost their affiliated status. The Grand Junction Rockies have changed their brand. They've changed their identity. They were the Grand Junction Rockies, even though for 2 years they haven't been affiliated with the Rockies. Now they're the Grand Junction Jackalopes. Can you tell me where that name comes from and what it means to the town of Grand Junction out on the western slope of Colorado?
Well, it's funny that you mentioned that we're on breaking news type episode because it was sort of the same type of news for us in the office and in the Future Legends world. So once the company obtained the Grand Junction Rockies and like, all right, we're going to change the branding and everything. So obviously as a designer, my ears perk up. I'm ready to be involved in any type of rebranding I can. That's kind of one of my dreams of mine and what led me to working for Future Legends really was the opportunity to work in minor league baseball and just to do all the crazy brand stuff, right?
Yeah.
So the Grand Junction area, I guess, had an idea for a team long before, which you might have heard of.
Mm-hmm.
And we were kind of gearing up for that in a way
Mm-hmm.
and ready for just kind of the hammer to drop. Like, this is definitely what we're going to do. This is the plan. We're going to have this branding. And I was kind of ready for the, unfortunate news of outsourcing, to be honest.
Yeah.
But then it came up, the owner came in like, hey, so looks like we're looking at jackalopes. It was one, they put a public form out.
Yeah.
And it was one of the top voted ones. So for those listening, your opinion is heard. So that was good.
Nice. The fan vote mattered. Nice.
I think they found the value in just the mythical creature aspect of it.
Yeah.
And that was really the interesting part of it, to say like, okay, so they have all these fun aspects of a mythical creature, Loch Ness monster type thing, where there's hearsay, there's folklore, and there's so much we can do branding wise. And it kind of went from there. And they asked me to get my creative juices going. And I have some office partners that helped me with the feedback. And other than that, just started sketching right away. And we had about, 2 weeks or so of a deadline and got after it and hopefully thought of something people would like. And we got going.
So you talked about there was one other name that you thought might be the name for a long time. This years ago, there was I don't know if it was a controversy, right? But I remember there was a sort of movement for the Grand Junction Chubs, and the team reacted negatively to that. It was the humpback chub is a kind of fish in the region. Is that the one you're talking about? Is that the one that you thought it might be?
Yes, correct. So it was kind of an odd split, I think, either both regionally and organizationally.
Mm-hmm.
Where if the wrong higher up thought that was too wild of a name,
right,
it's that's all it took, right? And
sure.
That's the main kind of feedback we've gotten, is the love for the humpback chubs, which is, I mean, as far as minor league baseball goes, it's pretty tough to beat as far as an outlandish name, right?
Right.
And so thinking about that fish and what it meant to that region, I kind of was surprised what it did mean to the region, because I thought it was just some thing that our ownership group found at first. Just to,
Yeah.
I mean, I was unbeknownst to it,
Yeah.
but come to find out, it was kind of a historical thing that's half the region, it seemed like from our feedback, really
Yeah.
wanted. So
Yeah.
it was interesting to hear about.
The name I submitted in the name the team contest was Cutthroats, because there's the cutthroat trout up there. But I guess there's another team in another league in another sport, and I forget what it is, but there's already a Cutthroats. There's a Colorado Cutthroats as of recently out there in the world. The other one that I was wondering about, and I'm curious from your perspective, as an insider, the other one that I had talked about a little bit was the team surely still owns the rights to the Casper Ghosts. And I thought Grand Junction Ghosts, even though, I get Casper the Ghost, right? But the Grand Junction Ghosts and that old glow in the dark logo that Brandiose did all those years ago, that would have been a fun one to reprise. Did that one come up in the process?
Absolutely, especially in our little art department we have. I guess
Uh-huh.
I mean I'm kind of one in a couple.
Yeah,
Really.
yeah.
I don't know how much you can see in my background, but when I heard Ghosts, I remember seeing that logo,
Yeah.
and that logo brought back some memories. And they had the glow in the dark
Yeah.
aspect to it, all the caps, and it was like, man, if we can reprise that history, that'd be
Yeah.
fantastic. I was all about the Ghosts.
Yeah.
A couple of them. I mean, I even submitted some, to be honest.
Did you?
To the forum. And just as far as an imagination aspect of everything you can do with the ghosts, that's great.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, Casper Ghosts always makes people laugh, as you kind of alluded
Right.
to, where it's
Right.
like, okay, there's the movies, Ghost, whatever.
Right.
But the connection to Wyoming, I think, kind of scared him off that, even though some people
Mm.
with jackalopes like, oh, that's a Wyoming thing.
Right. Right.
But the beauty of jackalope is, it's a mythical creature. So if you have your opinion on it, it is what it is. So,
Right. Right.
but that is funny that you brought up cutthroats and ghosts, and I remember those being a big favorite and kind of a split in our
Yeah.
office also. And I was all about ghosts. I know it was a little outlandish, but ghosts would have been fun.
It would have been cool, and you had the alliteration right there. But the one that you came up with is totally fun, right? And so first of all, even before when the team was affiliated with the Rockies, I was advocating for a name change, because I just think, like you said earlier, minor league baseball is just fun, right? And you should have fun brands, you should have unique nicknames, and for a minor league community, it's it's so easy to come up with something local, right? That the local community is going to enjoy. Grand Junction's not in the Rockies. I know it's in Colorado. It's not in the Rockies, right? So they had that goofy, it was goofy. They had that goofy, Pizza Hut logo. I'm sure you heard that when your organization purchased the Rockies, right? It was just okay, we got to get rid of this Pizza Hut logo, I assume, right? So in general, I'm glad that, just because we have one fewer team named for a major league club, I'm really glad about that. I think Jackalopes is a fun one. There is that connection, and I wonder, well, I'll just ask you the question. Is the purple in the logo sort of a wink and a nod to the old Rockies affiliation?
Yes and no.
Okay.
So
Okay.
The Future Legends brand itself, that is the purple from Future Legends brand.
Okay.
So originally, just to kind of keep the brand cohesive, although the teams we have in Northern Colorado do not adhere to this, they kind of wanted to keep that purple, and then they have a green that goes with it.
Mm.
So we were like, oh, how about just the start of the conversation was Future Legends colors. So that purple and the green.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And some deliberation went through where, well, obviously the purple is good for the people can kind of resonate from the transition, right? It's not the Rockies anymore, but if you had to wear your Grand Junction Rockies gear, you can.
Yeah.
And it's still your team type thing.
Yeah.
So it's not the Rockies purple anymore, but it is mainly purple.
Yeah.
And then we moved from that green to cyan blue to what you see now, which is more of your classic Pantone sky blue, I guess you could say. A little darker though.
Yeah. I thought we were going to get into Pantone numbers. I was like, all right, now we are nerding out here. This is, I am ready to nerd out. Give me a number. Give me the 3 digits.
You know what I meant to say? Not the Pantone, but what we used to call it in my Zephyr days was the process blue. That's what I was looking for.
Okay, the process blue.
If you want to talk Pantone numbers, we can.
Too funny. You said your Zephyr days. Tell me about your Zephyr days. Did you do work for the Denver Zephyrs?
Oh no, sorry. So Zephyr Z hats the hat
Oh,
brand.
okay. Okay.
So yeah, so you have, they've done hats for Savannah Bananas, the Frontier League,
Yeah.
even the Pioneer League. So
Okay.
that was my first, I guess, really fun design job I got to do. So that was kind of my dream up here in Northern Colorado to work for them. So I worked for Zephyr for 3.5 years, and that's kind of what really even like developed my aspiration to work in sports even further. So yeah,
Yeah.
I kind of a hat nerd myself, and
Nice.
I've seen all the logos and the goofiness come through there, so it just sparked it up even more.
Nice. I was gonna say you didn't look old enough to have worked for the Denver Zephyrs. So that didn't make a lot of sense to me. So that the hat company makes a lot more sense.
Oh, I appreciate that, because nowadays I just get more of the compliments of how I'm looking older and older. I used to
Oh,
be
is
the
that
young
right?
kid, now I'm the old kid.
Nice. So I wanted to get back to the purple though, and then I also want to talk about the jackalope itself. But the purple, you don't see a lot of purple in minor league baseball. I used to do for sportslogos.net. I used to do a color wheel of all the minor league baseball logos. I took all back then 160 minor league baseball logos and I arranged them according to the color wheel. And purple was always really hard, right? Like there were never any purple teams. I had like the New Orleans Baby Cakes had purple. Obviously, the Grand Junction Rockies had purple. There were always a couple in there. There's the Jamestown Jammers have purple, and so but the fact that you can like pick out just sort of a handful that have purple and not many do, that makes this logo, I think, stand out. That the fact that it's mostly purple.
Yeah, purple's a tricky one because, obviously what's key in a lot of these logos that I found is the use of black, right? Especially with the animation. You have these characters and a lot of this motion going on, whether they're swinging a bat, throwing a ball, that type of stuff.
Right.
The use of purple was tricky.
Yeah.
I think purple has its own strength, but at the end of the day, I think in the sports world, when you try to be intimidating, purple is tough because I'll never forget, there was an old Monday Night Football promo. And I think it was between the Green Bay Packers and the Minnesota Vikings, right?
Yeah.
And the two fans are just going back and forth, like, oh, you cheesehead, you this, you that. And then the last thing that I think the Packer fan said is like, you wear purple. So it's always tricky to be intimidating in purple, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think if it's done right, some of my favorite brands, especially historically, like Phoenix Suns, that's one of my favorite old school sports brands ever. And if you play that just right, I think it's iconic.
Sure. So, all right. So let's get into this. You've mentioned the mythological jackalope as a creature out here in the mountain states. I think you hear about it a lot. It in Wyoming. I think if you look at the origin stories of where the legend of the jackalope came from, Wyoming features prominently in it. But I think in general, the jackalope is associated with the mountain states like Colorado. So I'll just start by asking you, like, how much research did you do into the origin of the legend, the mythology of the jackalope, or even like examples of some of like the taxidermy that you see out there that exists in the world?
Yeah, with the good thing about the jackalope was the research just got more fun as you dove into it, because it just got more and more wild, and the folklore and all that, in comparison to, let's say, the chub, right? Where you have this pretty simple looking fish that's about to go extinct. Yeah. There's only so much you can make interesting if you really dive into it, and it just, a real creature only has its boundaries, right? So when we dove into the jackalope, obviously the beauty of it was the taxidermy thing, where you find that in any diner across the country, right? And you don't have to be from Wyoming to, like, if you went into a truck stop, you saw an animal. Like, I think I've talked to a bunch of people when they were kids, like, even this is my experience too. I looked up, like, there's a rabbit with horns on or with antlers. Like, you're just like, you just assume that's a real thing. Like, you don't think someone put that together.
Yeah.
So there was kind of two folklores that I dove into. There was the Douglas version of it, where it comes from Wyoming. These brothers put together this animal from taxidermy. They're hunters and they're just like having fun. And there's your jackalope, #1 requested taxidermy figure across the country for a while, or probably still is, for all I know. And then there was the folklore that I was more interested in, like when we, as far as building a logo, it only mates during lightning strikes. It's the one of my favorite ones, which was just silly to me, is like, how fast does a jackalope run?
Yeah.
What's its top speed? Like,
Right.
okay, so it's a mix of a antelope, right? So that
Mhm.
goes 60 miles an hour,
Uh-huh.
and a jackrabbit, which goes 30 miles an hour. So obviously a jackalope will go 90 miles an hour.
Oh,
Simple math. You add it up. So there's anything from that. Though if you set out whiskey in your front porch, a jackalope might come out. So that
uh-huh.
was a good way to find it. It's like, man, it just keeps building. And
Yeah.
the more I did my research, like, okay, this is just opening up almost too many horizons to where we could go logo wise. And
Yeah.
we tried to fit in, I don't know, I always, from when I design, I tried to go overload and then dumb it down
Hmm.
because I
Hmm.
tend to just do that anyways.
Sure.
So tried to fit in too many things and then try to like, okay, what are the most fun things? And I think we found that. So that folklore.
Absolutely. So the jackalope that you created, obviously you've got a certain amount of liberty because it's a mythological creature, but there's precedent sort of for what they look like, and as you say, you can find them taxidermied. The one that I note that's kind of funny is up in the Terry Bison Ranch up in just over. Have you been? You're nodding, right? Like just over the Colorado Wyoming
I
border.
know of it. Yep.
Yeah. So I've been there a few times because whenever my friends from the East Coast or my family from the East Coast come out to visit, like I'm like, hey, we're going to go feed some bison, right? So we go up to the Terry Bison Ranch, and in the gift shop there, they've got this gigantic jackalope that you can actually like sit on. It's got like a saddle and everything. And so it's like a gigantic jackrabbit with, large antlers. And, you can sit there and you take your picture on it and that sort of thing. So that's the one that I thought of. But then, probably the jackalope is probably going to be more like a jackrabbit size, right? Like it's probably a sort of a smaller animal. So obviously you can't really tell the scale when you're just looking at the logo here, but were you envisioning the giant jackalope, or the smaller ones?
Yeah, it's funny. Since we're just talking about the myths of it, there was the mammoth jackalope,
Uh-huh. Okay.
which kind of came up, and one of the reasons why that died off was because the Europeans came in and killed off its main source of food, which was the
Okay.
bison. So I did dive into that. That was a little later on, as
Yeah.
far as how large these could be,
Yeah.
right? But initially, I did think jackrabbit,
Yeah.
the antelope antlers, right?
Right.
And it's been pointed out since the release, like those are deer antlers. That's not right. It should be antelope
Ah.
antlers, all this. But I think one of the first things visually, what
Yeah.
I wanted to try to accentuate, I wanted it, since it's a mythical creature and we think about a jackalope just having this little animal with these giant horns. I just figured, I pictured initially the rack to be just kind of astronomical
Yeah.
and unrealistic for this little animal to hold, because
Right.
that's the idea. It's a mythological thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I to find that balance was really tricky for me, especially with the ears. So there's so much stuff going on up here
Right.
where I wanted this like to feel like you're in this Final Fantasy type world
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
where this small bodied animal could have these magical large antlers and then just kind of take over. So if it was up to me, I would have pushed those limits even more and just make the antlers so ridiculous that it was like it really felt like you're in a fantasy world.
Right.
So we wanted to bring those together and make those a focus point, and to make those versatile with the bat and stand alone and all those type of things
Sure.
with the logo package that will be released a little later. So
Yeah.
those antlers were important to me to really feel almost unworldly.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I wouldn't have looked at that and thought deer antlers, right? Like, and the way
Oh,
the sort of the contours are matching the shape of the ears there. And so that's, I think this is a really fun brand, and it's been really well received too. So that's been interesting to see. I did cover it for sports logos. One of the things I noticed, and Future Legends Complex also owns the Northern Colorado Owls with a Z, and the eyes of your jackrabbit. I know that you did not create the original branding for Northern Colorado Owls with a Z, but the eyes of the jackrabbit look like they relate a little bit to those eyes that are on your hat right now. You're wearing the Northern Colorado hat right now. Is it intentional that if you pulled out these jackrabbit eyes, that there might be a little bit of a relationship to the owls?
That's a great great point. That's funny. So the one of the from the original renditions we had for the jackalope,
Uh-huh.
it was instructed to me like it was important to find a middle ground between too intimidating and family oriented
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
image.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, they got these eyes already, and they love like our organization loves these. Like the eyes are really revered. So
Yeah.
understandably, it's been pretty successful as a
Yeah.
a logo. And so I was like, okay, well, I tend to go a little harsher first for my experience and like a little more intimidating.
Yeah.
But it is like a bunny rabbit. Let's in simple terms, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So when we did the little tease, I was like, how about we do it this way where we have this scroll up, really Western style, and then we just kind of flash like a silhouette or maybe even just the eyes.
Yeah.
And then right when I said the eyes, like, oh well, owls, like that's
Yeah.
that's what their thing is. And then when I cut out the eyes, like, yeah, you're right, they are pretty similar, but no, it wasn't quite the intention.
Okay.
Especially because I didn't want it to be too obvious where like they're in the same league and everything. So
Right.
it wasn't intentional. The eyes, I mean, that front facing jackalope, it's kind of tough to avoid a certain pair of eyes that look similar.
Right.
But I
Right.
tried to keep, the irises and everything toned down and simple.
Yeah.
But that's interesting you point that out. That might just be a happy little coincidence or a mishap.
All right.
But,
It's not a mishap. No, I kind of liked how it sort of tied the two teams together from Future Legend Complex. So
I'll take it.
So there, you referenced there's a lot of design elements. You guys put out this great, I love the sort of branding guide that you put out with the team that sort of highlighted some of the different things. You mentioned the mating habit where they only mate during lightning strikes. So there's a lightning bolt on the actual baseball bat. I enjoy that. The lucky rabbit's foot is part of the sort of underline of the underneath the script of Jackalopes. You've got the shape of sort of a lucky rabbit's foot. That's a fun design element there. I have to ask, did you grow up in Colorado?
Yes, sir.
So,
right here in Northern Colorado, graduated from Windsor High School.
All right, very nice. So the signage here, the Grand Junction sign with the sort of etched painted lettering on it is, I've been in Colorado now for 20 years. So I grew up on the East Coast, but the lettering and this sort of wooden sign is every trail sign you see on every trail in Colorado if you're a hiker, right? So definitely, as soon as I saw it, I recognized it immediately. And like that sort of like etched lettering that they then fill in with paint, like totally something. I was like, whoever, I didn't know that you had created it at first. And so I was like, whoever created this is from Colorado, because that looks like every sign I've ever seen in Colorado.
Oh man, that was an instinctual thing. As far as I got asked to push the Grand Junction portion of like some of the first renditions I did.
Yeah.
And it was the best part, I think, what came of being pushed a little bit as a designer. You're kind of like, oh, this is what I got in a short amount of time, but like, hey, can we do this like something different?
Right.
And we didn't have a direction, so I was like, okay, what do we do? What's kind of a Western concept that we can push here? And that sign, I was really happy with running into that idea, because I think it's instinctually like growing up here, seeing that, and then like this campground type stuff,
Right.
where it's kind of sloppily put together, but it's put together as best as they could type
Yeah.
thing. And you have that bevel, and I think that typeface mixed with that outline, and I've loved reading the comments so far. I've been blessed with doing this project for like kind of the first time this type of release.
Yeah.
But seeing the comments, people point out like, oh my God, they screwed up the letters. Why the letters look so terrible? I love looking at that. I was like, yeah, I remember looking at that and making them crooked because that's how it would look.
Because that's what it would look like. Exactly.
Yeah. If you made a sign by hand,
yeah,
it's going to be crooked.
It would look like that. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I had fun doing that. And I think it really added a huge element to this that really set it off.
Yeah.
And it was kind of a happy accident of sorts, but that's doing the research and happy accidents. That's what makes the best designs in my experience.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more about the happy accident, right? Like that's, I mean, such a great design phenomenon, but you have to recognize it when you see it, for one thing. You know, I mean, it's you, and you have to learn the rules to break the rules, because if you're breaking the rules without knowing the rules. The other thing I wanted to point out here, and then I'll let you go because I've already kept you longer than I meant to for this breaking news episode here. The jackalope himself looks a little damaged, right? Like he's not a clean cut jackalope. He's got, first of all, like, you know, he's got the sort of like mustache, like the sort of old West looking mustache, right? Like almost like a Yosemite Sam mustache. The, you know, the sort of shaggy hair on the side and like the chipped tooth. So he's not a clean cut, you know, city jackalope. He's definitely a rough and tumble Western, you know, outdoorsy jackalope.
Love it. Yeah. So some of the feedback, I got, I'll start with that, you know, because it starts as a team effort for sure, was like, hey, it started off like a bandit idea. Like can we like put a bandana over him or a hat? And I was like, well, hat's out of the question because there's already all kinds of stuff going up there.
Right.
Bandana, we've seen that a lot. And so I went right back to the, you know, Western cowboy feel.
Yeah.
And I started thinking, all right, facial hair, Wyatt Earp. So
Wyatt Earp,
like,
okay.
Let's accentuate that and just really have him kind of either Wyatt Earp or Django Unchained, Dr. Schultz, where he kind of has a little thicker mustache over his beard there. So there was that, and there was also some where I had this, you know, kind of how I described earlier, this epic set of antlers on this animal where it's just like a little too pristine.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, well, you know what? It's a mythical creature. He's been through some stuff. And obviously we're going in the battle as the team. And let's kind of make that a little asymmetrical there to where there's chips here, there's cracks there. And, you know, just add a little more character to it. Obviously the chip tooth was a thing that was from day one.
Okay.
It's funny, as a kid, I had a chip tooth.
Okay.
So, off of some bicycle handlebars.
Yeah, all right.
You know, a lot of the illustrations and things I do, if there's a teeth involved or a skull or whatever, there's a chip tooth there. So I knew right away that was going to be an easy thing for me. It's like, well, the bunny rat or the rabbit, the jackalope, it's going to have the teeth out, and it's going to be rough and tumble, and it's going to have a chip. So that was the day one adage for me.
Well, you've also got a little bit of the handlebar mustache going on here too. So it's, you know, maybe there's a sort of self-portrait element of this.
There's always a little bit, as much as any artist wants to argue that, but there's something in there. That's what makes it hopefully better.
Well, yeah, absolutely. And it makes it distinctly yours. And I have to say now, with the Wyatt Earp connection now, every time I see this logo, I'm just going to picture your jackalope saying, "I'm your Huckleberry." So this is
beautiful.
Well, like I said, Nathan, I've kept you longer than I meant to, but this has been so much fun to talk about this new brand here. And I can't, it's about a 5-hour drive for me. I'm guessing it's about a 5-hour drive for you to get out there to catch a game, but I'm hoping that they'll have this logo on some helmet Sundays out there, because I love the helmet Sundays. So hopefully we'll get some purple helmets with your jackalope on it. But speaking of catching you at a ball game and, you know, having some ice cream, I know that, you know, a lot of the work that you've done to date has been for the Northern Colorado Owls with a Z, as we've been talking about. Looking forward to catching that new ballpark next season. That'll be fun to get out there and see the Future Legend Complex in its full glory. And that's like 20 minutes for me. So I can't wait to get out there and catch Northern Colorado in action.
Oh yeah, you and me both, man. We're all really excited to try to get everything finalized. It's been a long wait for a lot of people, especially locally in the town of Windsor. It's been a thing. I remember since I was in 8th grade, they built this little 3-plex of fields. Yeah. And it was supposed to bring a minor league park. That was 15 years ago. So I'm excited. It's going to be great. And I hope we just bring all the joy to everybody, especially the minor league baseball fans.
Well, it's been an absolute treat to talk to you here for the first time. Looking forward to catching a ball game with you either in Windsor or out in Grand Junction. And thank you so much for coming on in such short order here, because I know that this all happened fairly quickly. So I appreciate Appreciate you coming on. I really enjoy the new brand for Grand Junction, and looking forward to seeing more of your work.
I really appreciate it. This has been an honor, man. I've never done anything like this, and it really feels like, a lot of work is coming to fruition. And keep an eye out for some more of the brand reveal. There's some more fun stuff, and we're gonna make this the best we can. So I really appreciate it, Paul.
Well, hey, when the new stuff comes out, we'll cover it on sportslogos.net, and we'll certainly our minor league baseball Twitter community will get after it. We love all this stuff. So where can people find you online and on Twitter in particular?
Oh, my Twitter handle is just N8 Martinez 889, and don't do Instagram much, but I think it's N8 Martinez 37. I rarely put stuff on there. Other than that, I am liking sportslogos.net stuff, the ice cream baseball stuff. It's pretty simple follows. I'm not too crazy on social media, but I'll put out some artwork on Twitter for the most part if there's anything.
Nice. N8 Martinez 89.
You got it.
All right. Thank you, Nate.
Thanks, man.
All right, everyone. Welcome back. Thank goodness we have, for Baseball by Design, we have on retainer a wildlife consultant, Baseball by Design, wildlife consultant, Ranger Amy Burnett. Ranger Amy Burnett, thank you for being available on short notice to talk about this very exciting new development in minor league baseball. The Grand Junction Jackalopes. Grand Junction out in western Colorado. They were the Grand Junction Rockies, even though their affiliation with the Rockies ended 2 years ago when the Pioneer League became an independent league. Already, as you know, boring for a team to be named for its parent club. Just straight weird for a team to be named for its former parent club. So we're glad to see the Rockies go away and become the Jackalopes, at least out in Grand Junction. So, and therein lies the confusion, right? I said the Rockies. What team am I talking about, right? Well, now we don't have to do that anymore. We have the Jackalopes. So thank you for being
super excited. Yeah, I mean, it's so important to get this out there because they're endangered species. Some people actually believe that they're extinct. I do not. So it's really important to talk about them and talk about them now because we really need to bump up their populations here.
So all right, well, so let's talk about the very real Jackalopes. I have seen a giant jackalope in person.
Where did you see it?
It was taxidermied. I got to actually sit on the thing's back. It was at the Terry Bison Ranch in Cheyenne, Wyoming. And in the gift shop, they have a gigantic jackalope, maybe one of the prehistoric, like really huge ones, I guess.
Yeah, they're not so big now because they've evolved to be smaller, so they're not seen as often. So
So let's talk about it though. Tell me as wildlife expert, tell me what you know about the definitely not mythological, the definitely real jackalope species. Are there multiple species of jackalope?
I don't know why you keep saying definitely not mythological, Paul. I need you to believe on this one. This is a really great team name. Very excited about it. And they are an endangered species. They're estimated about 2,500 in Colorado as of last count. So it's pretty darn exciting.
Never before seen, though, by human eyes. Is that right?
People have seen them. It's just really hard to trap them, to get them on a hunting license. There's a very limited season. I'll talk about that in a little bit. But the first guy who was actually credited with seeing one was 1829, a guy named George McLean, and no one believed him. So they said that he was a really big fan of whiskey, so that might have had something to do with it, why they kept calling him a liar. But he was the first person to see one, but it wasn't taxidermied until many years later. But they're very rarely seen, and they have really crazy reproductive habits, and the hunting season on that's really limited. So let's
talk about this hunting season. I understand there is an extremely limited hunting season because they are so endangered.
It's because they're so rare, and because of the way their mating season runs. So they are in Wyoming, that you are only allowed to hunt them on February 29th, but not on leap years because that's their mating season in Wyoming.
Leap years, their mating season is leap years.
Yes, exactly. Jackalope leap years. Yep.
All right.
But in Colorado, it's a different hunting season. So in Colorado, the hunting season is actually June 31st. So that's hunting season in Colorado. So if you want to get a hunting license for jackalope, that's the day to do it.
So the definitely not mythological jackalopes can be hunted on the definitely not mythological day of June 31.
You keep saying this definitely not mythological.
I just want people to believe the science is all. Just believe the science.
Yeah. Okay. I just want you to believe, Paul. That's all I'm looking for here. So there's several ways to catch jackalopes. One of the best ways to catch a jackalope is to actually put out whiskey for them. Some people put out, milk and cookies to try to catch Santa. You
also
really
real,
put out
also not mythological.
Correct. But you put out whiskey for jackalopes, and that attracts them. And once your jackalope is drunk, it's really easy to catch him because he's moving a little bit more slowly and unsteadily. The catch is, though, you don't want to drink while you're doing the hunting, because then your prey escapes. So you just
sleep right through June 31st if you do that.
You might, yeah, right through June 31st. So that's the way to catch them. And they have a really interesting reproductive habit, so that you should know about. They in Colorado, so we were talking about Wyoming, during leap years, but in Colorado, it's actually during the monsoon time of year. So, and they only mate during lightning strikes.
Lightning strikes during monsoon season in Colorado. Yes. Okay.
In Colorado, that's when their mating season. So it's really, really short. And that's why they're so endangered. I mean, imagine, only getting a chance to mate during lightning storms.
I like, though, that this is a species that recognizes state borders and changes its mating seasons according to what state they're in.
I just think that they are really cold up in Wyoming, maybe not so cold in Colorado.
Well, they're elusive, and so it's hard to study their mating habits for sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Maybe the scientists were drinking a little bit of whiskey. Who knows? Right.
So it feels to me like the Grand Junction Jackalopes should maybe be serving either whiskey or maybe like jackalope burgers, right? Can we get some like jackalope soup, or is it because they're endangered that we can't?
It's going to be really tough to get that game meat. It's really tightly controlled. But I have found whiskey rabbit jerky. So, that's a really good combination.
Whiskey rabbit jerky?
Catch them. You use whiskey to catch them, and a little bit of whiskey flavoring in with your rabbit jerky. They call it whiskey rabbit jerky, but it's really, if you see that word whiskey and rabbit jerky, it's probably jackalope.
That's
the distinctive taste.
It has a distinctive taste. I was going to ask you what they tasted like.
Like whiskey. Yeah.
They taste like whiskey. Oh.
Tastes like whiskey.
All right, this is really good. Let's talk about the actual physical characteristics of the jackalope. How do I know if I'm out there wandering around in Colorado during monsoon season? How do I know when I see a jackalope?
Well, you can only see the male jackalope because the female jackalope doesn't have antlers. So this is an important thing to know. So you might have already seen a jackalope in Colorado, Paul, in Fort Collins, and just you saw a doe, which is the female, didn't have antlers. How do you know that you didn't see a jackalope? You just thought it was a rabbit.
So okay, well, so maybe I've seen one, but then what about the male jackalope? What am I looking for?
So with the male jackalope, you're looking for something that is the size of a rabbit. In Colorado, Arizona, they get a little bit bigger. In olden days, they used to be a lot bigger. The ones now, they've evolved to be a little smaller, a little bit elusive. So you're looking for big ears and antlers.
What are some of their physical attributes? What about, we always talk about these animals and what kind of ball player they would make. If you're the Grand Junction Jackalopes, what's intimidating about a jackalope? What is it that we're gonna see in these jackalopes on the field?
Well, I think that just having those antlers, and it's not horns. If you are a deer or a jackalope, it's antlers. That's the correct term. So those antlers, they can be pretty fearsome. So I wouldn't want to be gored by an antler. I mean, they'd probably only hit your knee or something like that. But that's it still could do some damage. Another thing about jackalopes, they can, of course, they've got the big leaping ability that you want in a baseball player. One interesting thing that might translate, especially if you are a very competitive baseball team, is that they can mimic the human voice and throw their voice.
Oh, it sounds like a little bush league here. This sounds like Alex Rodriguez in 2007 yelling, "I got it," against the Blue Jays and making the Blue Jays let a pop-up drop between them in the 9th inning. That was pretty bush league. So hopefully the jackalopes are not as base runners yelling, "I got it," and making players step away from pop-ups.
I think they're cunning, just like A-Rod was. And I think the borderline cheating maybe would be, they're really, I don't know, can I say that?
How that guy rehabilitated his reputation and is now an announcer for Major League Baseball games is beyond me, but that is neither here nor there. So,
Yeah, I hope you
all
don't
right.
lose any subscribers to your podcast because we just totally picked on A-Rod.
Well,
But, I am giving him credit for being cunning, just like the
okay.
jackalope, throwing his voice, mimicking the human voice over here.
Yeah.
And that fooled a lot of cowboys back in the day, back in the early 1900s.
Yeah. I was researching jackalopes a little bit when I covered this unveiling for sportslogos.net. And one of the things that I learned was that the first jackalope was created by a lightning strike, where there was a jackrabbit and an antelope near each other, and there was a lightning strike, and it caused a fusion of these two animals. Can you, from your cryptozoological background, can you confirm this or deny it?
I can neither confirm nor deny that, but
Yeah.
it sounds like a logical story. But no one actually has any photos. There really isn't anything to prove that. But it sounds like a great story. Which came first, the chicken or the egg? Which came first, the antelope or the jackrabbit? Turned into jackalope. I think it sounds feasible.
So they have strong legs for jumping or running. Obvious baseball, ability intertwined in those abilities right there. They've got the horns. No, sorry, they have the antlers, not horns.
Good. Yep.
And they can throw their voices. And so I can see how this would be an intimidating foe for a Pioneer League team. Now I'm curious though. All right, you've got the Missoula Paddleheads in the Pioneer League. You've got the Grand Junction Jackalopes in the Pioneer League. I think you're going to have some literal headbutting here. I think you're going to have some mascots, cracking antlers against one another.
Well, I think that the jackalope you're going to find is a lot more agile, and the rundowns are going to be a lot easier. The paddleheads, they're just really heavy. Moose antlers are going to be really, really heavy, and I think the jackalopes have the competitive edge there.
The jackalopes, I think, being sort of small and agile, are going to hit for average, whereas the paddleheads are just going to be. They're just going to be swinging for the fences every time. I think you're going to see a difference in style there in the Pioneer League. So this will come into play in the Pioneer League because in the Pioneer League, at the end of 9 innings, if the game is tied, they don't do extra innings. They do a home run contest. And so
that's fun.
I'm hoping to see that someday with my neighborhood, my right around the corner Owls with a Z. Fingers crossed their new ballpark is coming. I can't wait to see a home run contest. I know. Well, we should do a live recording sometime at an Owls with a Z game.
I didn't talk about the nerdy part, and I don't know if we want to talk about this, but there's some really cool nerdy parts. Kind of the interesting thing about how jackalopes probably came to be was in the 1930s, they discovered a virus that actually caused keratinous growths on the heads of rabbits that made them look like they had antlers. And so there's actually, in the Smithsonian Institute, there is a rabbit that has a horn sticking out of its head that looks like it has antlers. And it's actually just like a cancerous keratinous horn that happened to come about after getting a virus called the papilloma virus.
But that's not a real jackalope. That's just a jackrabbit with a weird growth.
That's just a jackrabbit with a weird growth. However, actually that was a cottontail with a weird growth on its head. However, if you look up these pictures of these horrific bunnies with like weird growths in their heads, you can see why people would believe that there are jackalopes and that could be a possibility out in the world. And they were living, breathing things. They weren't just taxidermied rabbits.
Well, this has been very informative, very eye-opening. Thank you for coming on and allowing us to, on an emergency, short notice basis, tap the resources of your knowledge about this important animal, this important part of the ecosystem. We'll definitely be coming to you for future teams that are based on other definitely real animals like the unicorn and the mermaids and the platypuses. We'll absolutely be coming and talking to you about those. Ranger Amy Burnett, wildlife consultant for Baseball by Design. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me at short notice. This is great.